What's up, everybody? Welcome to Taxidermy Tuesday. This is going to be a new series I'm going to do, and it's not necessarily going to be for taxidermists, like tips and things like that. I by no means claim to be the best out there. I know everybody's got stuff that works for them that doesn't necessarily work for everybody else, and things they like to do, ways they like to do things. So I'm not going to be on here giving a bunch of tips on how to do taxidermy. If you are a taxidermist and you have questions about maybe the way you see me doing something, or comments about, something you think could be better, I'm all ears. Definitely leave a comment about that kind of stuff. But this is going to be more for those of you who don't do taxidermy, that you just drop your deer off and then wait for it to be done and go pick it up. And I'll talk about kind of how we do things, give you guys a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, at least how we do all of our taxidermy stuff here at the shop. So it's going to be hopefully interesting for you guys to kind of see a little bit of the process and how things work. But today, I'm not necessarily going to get into a lot of that stuff. I'm going to be talking about why it takes sometimes a long time for you to get your deer head back. Or at least, perceived why a long time, I guess. That's all subjective. I think turnaround times, anywhere from a few months to 2 years is pretty average. It's a pretty wide range, but there's a lot of reasons for that, and I'm going to get into those. We always try to get ours out in 10 to 11 months, just because for no other reason, if for no other reason, we do our deer heads in the same shop that we process deer, so we can't really do them both at the same time. So I'm a little bit limited. I have to wait until deer season's over until I can start on them. At the same time, it kind of pushes me to get them done before deer season starts. So right around 10, 11 months is pretty average for us. I'll have everything done by the end of September. That way I can get rolling again when October comes around. But like I said, there's a lot of different reasons that it takes some people longer than others. One big one is I'd say a good number of taxidermists, it's not their full-time gig. They're doing a handful of deer every year, and they've got another job that pays most of the bills, and then they do taxidermy on the side. So it's kind of a time constraint as much as anything. They got to focus on their full-time job and family obligations and everything like that, and the taxidermy kind of falls to the wayside sometimes, I'm sure. So that could be one reason. So if your taxidermist isn't doing it full-time, that's something to take into consideration before you get upset about the time. And I'm not saying people are getting upset about it, but I do think we get asked a lot about the process and why does it take so long. And I've put a couple videos, at least one video out with some taxidermy stuff on it. There was a lot of people asking that, why does it take so long or whatever. So that could be one reason. Another big reason, for us, we do all of our own green work on the hides and everything, and our own preservative work. So not everybody has the ability or the place or the space to do that. So they have to send their hides off to get them done by somebody else. And the turnaround time on that just depends on the time of year they get them to whoever's doing their green work. So if they send it off in October, November, the turnaround time might be a couple months. If they send it off to get done in January, February, March, like a lot of other people do, because that's when the deer season ends, then you're looking at maybe 10 to 12 months turnaround for the taxidermist to get your hide back to them so they can even start mounting it. So there's 10 months to a year right off the top of your timetable if they have to send those off to get done. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'd probably do that if we didn't have the ability to do it. I'd probably have to do that. So that's just something that can take some time, and it's kind of out of the taxidermist's hands. There's not really anything you can do if you shoot your deer in November, December, and they get it skinned out and sent off, and their tannery tells them it's going to be 10 months, then it's going to be 10 months. There's not really anything that they can do to make that process go faster, and they can't mount your deer if they don't have the cape. So I think that's probably a really big one. And then another one, and the reason it takes us the time it does, probably the number one reason it takes us the amount of time it does, because if you just sat down and started one deer head, you could have it done in probably a month to 2 months, just drying time and everything like that. Because that is part of the equation, right? So these deer, once I get done with what I'm doing here, I'm gonna put this hide on and sew him up, and then tomorrow I'll come in and shape the face and everything, and then I'll put pins in it, and then he has to stay like that for at least 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, just depending on how fast everything dries out. We have to allow that drying time. So if I just came in here tomorrow, shaped him up, came in the next day and painted it, everything would stretch and pull away. Doesn't matter if what kind of tanning you're doing or what kind of preserving work you're doing, they're gonna stretch a little bit when they dry. So if I did that, the paint would crack and it would end up looking really bad. I'd have gaps everywhere, all over the place. So that takes time on its own. But because of that, like I'm sure a lot of other taxidermists, do things in batches. When you have a certain number of stuff, I don't just start on one and then wait for it to be done in 4 weeks and then finish it. I try to get as many to this point as I can, and then I get everything set up to start doing the finish work. In between that, I do have to wash them as well. So there's another few days after washing, I have to let it dry. But I'll try to get everything to the point that this one's gonna be at, sewn up and pinned, and then at least as many as I can get in the room. And then I'll turn around and get everything set up to do the finish work, which is the waxing, the painting, stuff like that, that I'll get into on this channel at some point. So I try to get everything to that point so I can set up to do that and be the most efficient in that, and then get that batch done, and then I start the process over. Or sometimes, you know, I get all of my deer to that point to where they're ready to finish, and then I go finish all of them in the last couple months of that turnaround time I was talking about. So that's a big one as well, just the number of pieces that your taxidermist might have to do. It's easy to forget, hey, you got your deer in there and you're only thinking about your deer, because why would you think about somebody else's deer? But they have to worry about, you know, 50, 60, 100 other pieces that they have to do. And that all takes time. They can't just do one at a time. At least we can. So that's a big one for sure. I think those are honestly probably the biggest reasons. The turnaround time on the tanning stuff, having a lot to do and wanting to do it the most efficient way possible, not just being able to do one piece at a time. And then if it's not their full-time gig, I think those are probably like the 3 biggest reasons that it takes, you know, whatever time it does, whether that is 4 months or whether it is 2 years. I do think once you start getting past 2 years, that seems like a long time to me, but I know there's people that happens to. So if you guys have any, you know, if you're a taxidermist watching this and I missed something, feel free to comment and let the people know. But that's the kind of stuff I'm gonna be doing on this channel. I'll talk about, you know, different things that are going on with taxidermy. I'll get into what I'm doing with these ears right here, how I did the eyes, the antlers and all that. Kind of the whole process. I'll just break it down kind of from start to finish, and then show you guys the painting and everything. If you enjoy it, leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff. This will be coming out. I'll try to do one every week. It might be one every couple weeks. On Tuesdays we'll do these, but if you guys enjoy them, let me know, and I'll definitely keep putting them out. So just another, hopefully, type of content that'll be good and get some information out there about taxidermy, because I know there's not a ton, and people do a lot of guessing and wondering how things work or why. So I think it'd be really interesting. It's gonna be really fun to do. So I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you subscribe so you know when the next one comes out. We'll see you then.